Hello, blessings and shalom to everybody. It's good to be back with you today, and I'm excited to share this week's portion, this Parashat, with you. And if you haven't watched any of the previous videos, if this is your first time to this channel, The Bridge, I strongly encourage you to watch the other videos. You'll learn a lot, and it's a blessing. It's a blessing to go over these portions, not just to relay information, but to receive it. And so I'm constantly learning, and I enjoy it. I love it. And, when I came to this way and this understanding of the scriptures, it's like the scriptures is 3D now, and it's just awesome. It's more personal. And so I'm really enjoying it. But today we're going to be talking about the new portion, which you have to forgive my Hebrew, but it's pronounced Cheyei Sarah, which means the life of Sarah. And so, which is interesting because this portion, it covers Genesis chapter 23, verse 1 through chapter 25, verse 18. And the very first verse here of chapter 23, verse 1 talks about the death of Sarah. But as believers, as those of us that are followers of Messiah, and we believe in the resurrection, so we don't focus on the death. We don't focus on the darkness. We focus on the life of. And a lot of times it's a beautiful tradition when you pray over your daughters or a young lady, you pray over them. May they be like in the first name you mentioned, like Sarah. And Sarah had a wonderful legacy, a wonderful testimony. Of course, like every human being, she wasn't perfect, but she had a wonderful testimony, a true servant of the Most High, and to her husband. And so very interesting. So in chapter 23, I'm going to give you kind of a couple highlights, and then we'll just kind of zoom in on one specific thing that I think I pray it'll be a blessing to you. But in chapter 23, like I mentioned, you have the death of Sarah. You also have the burial of Sarah. And more from a practical point of view, Abraham was very concerned in a positive way of making sure that he did a proper burial for his wife. And as he's looking for a place to bury her, it was offered to him of receiving that lot for free, that property, but he decided no. He wanted to pay, the Bible says, full price for it. And again, from a practical sense, I think those of us of the way, those of us who follow Messiah, it's a good lesson for us to not be advantage takers, to not always take advantage of a situation of people, but to follow this example of, paying full price or paying the correct price, not just looking for freebies and handouts. And, Abraham had this opportunity, but he didn't do that. And I think even when we support each other, and I would strongly encourage you, if you have people that are lovers of Messiah, followers of Messiah and of the Torah, and they're in your community, maybe hire them to do a job, but don't look for, for them to do it for free or for peanuts, pay them the correct amount. And I believe that the Holy One will honor that. But anyways, you kind of just see that as an example, and I thought that was a good thing, just, a reminder for us not to be advantage takers. Then we jump to chapter number 24, and this is kind of where I want to focus on, but Abraham sends his eldest and most faithful servant by the name of Eliezer. Now, Eliezer has been with Abraham from the beginning. He's been a faithful servant to him. And right now, Abraham is at that stage of his life where he is, again, in a good way, concerned about Isaac and whom he's going to marry. And I think those of us parents, especially those who have older teens or maybe even in their 20s, I'm sure this is a concern because you want your child to marry the right person. My kids are still young, but I still pray for my future son-in-laws and daughter-in-law. And, it's just something that's heavy on a parent's heart. So he's obviously concerned for this, and he doesn't want his son to marry somebody in the land of Canaan because at this point it's still pagan. And he makes a specific request to Eliezer, and he asks him to go back to his homeland within his household to find somebody. Maybe somebody with the same morals or standards, somebody with the same upbringing, because you can see it throughout Abraham's life and Sarah. They're very hospitable. I think that's something we can definitely learn from them. They're very gracious. They're giving people. They cared a lot. And so he wanted somebody of that mindset. And I think it's an important thing, too, as we look for and pray about, finding spouses for maybe you're single and finding your own spouse or your children, is to find somebody of like-mindedness. Now, obviously, we got to give a little bit of lenience and have a little bit of open-mindedness as well. And nobody's going to be perfect. Nobody's going to fit the bill, so to speak. And we have to mature and we have to grow in grace as well. But I think that's a pretty good example as well that we see with Abraham and Eliezer. But anyways, the point is, so Eliezer does what his master, Abraham, asked him to do. So he goes on this journey. He takes 10 camels, which is interesting. 10 camels, 10 lost tribes, 10 virgins, just something for you to look into. And he takes them on this journey, and he's as passionate about finding the right girl. He's as passionate about this mission as Abraham. And it's a little bit of a convicting thought, because am I as passionate about the scriptures, about Torah, about following my Messiah as much as my Messiah was? And so I think sometimes, and it happens to me, we can maybe lose that passion. That fire can dwindle a little bit. Can I encourage you today to get back in scriptures, get back in prayer, and kindle that fire again? Maybe you're like a Jeremiah, and you're ready to throw in the towel in this stage of your life, but there's that little fire burning within your bones, and feed it in a positive way, and get back on fire. But you see, he's very passionate, and so he goes on to find his master's son, a future wife. And of course, if you read the scriptures, you know the details there. They find Rebecca. Of course, she has a total servant's heart. She's giving them to drink first, even the camels, and that was not an easy job. So it probably took hours to do this before she even thought about herself. And so, again, just an attitude of being a true servant. And Eliezer, he's praising the Lord. He's excited. He's excited about pleasing his master. He's excited about his master's son, the whole situation. He sees how the Almighty is working these things out. And all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. And so all these things are working out. And so what I learned from Eliezer in consideration of all this is that his whole mission was to please his master and to be a faithful servant. I'll let you think about that for a second. His mission was to be a faithful servant and please his master. And I honestly believe that's something that we ought to examine in our own hearts and find out, is that my main purpose in life? Or do I have other goals and ambitions? And so he takes this to heart. And I love the way his attitude and spirit is about the whole thing. And it brings us to where I kind of want to conclude at a teaching of Yeshua. Of course, Yeshua's teachings, a lot of them had to do with the kingdom. And we get to Luke chapter 16, verses 19 to 31, a very familiar passage if you've ever been in church. It's about Lazarus and the rich man. Now, I know the church interpretation of this passage of heaven and hell, and that's not what it's talking about. And I used to teach that. So it's not what it's talking about at all. In Yeshua, aka Jesus, he's teaching through. Remember, there's no chapters and verses in Luke. He's teaching through on the kingdom, and he's talking a lot about the servants. He kind of pauses a little bit. He looks at the Pharisees, but you're concerned about ruling. You're concerned about riches. In other words, their focus was not being a servant. Their focus was about being served. And then in that transition, he goes to this story of Luke chapter 16. Verses 19 to 31 of Lazarus and the rich man. Now, interesting enough, Lazarus is the English translation, but the Hebrew translation is Eliezer. And how it makes sense, because you have Abraham's bosom, and the servant Eliezer. So you're familiar with this passage. The rich man lived for the things of this world. And now death comes, as it will come to all of us. And Eliezer / Lazarus was barely making it by, but yet they both die at the same day. But Lazarus is the one who's comforted in Abraham's bosom. And then the rich man who didn't serve others, that only wanted to be served, that was concerned about the things of this world, that would allow others to only eat the crumbs, or really the leftovers of what his plate was. He wasn't, as Yeshua taught us, he didn't see the hungry and fed them. He didn't see the naked and clothed them. He's just concerned about himself. And so you see this example of they both die, and now Eliezer is the one being comforted. So what's the lesson here? Well, there's a lot we can get from it, but I only got a couple more minutes. But one of them is, Yeshua taught us this. He made this very clear. Those who will be his servants will be exalted. Those that are willing to lay down their life here will be exalted in the kingdom, will be comforted in the kingdom. See, if we're not careful, Satan is going to tempt us just like he did Yeshua and offer us the riches of this world. And it happens to all of us. And we become more concerned about the things of this world, making sure that I'm A-okay. And then I begin to forget about others. But if I can get back to a servant's mentality and say, I am here to please my master. I am here to accomplish his will, what he set me to do. And if we can have that focus and stay on focus, even if we're not as comforted in this side of things, we'll be comforted on the other side of things. See, this is not about building our own kingdom. This is not about building church attendance, finding out how you can grow your Sunday school class, how you can double your attendance. This isn't about how you can become a millionaire. This is much bigger. And this is about the kingdom. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. And until his kingdom is established here, my job is to bring a piece of that kingdom to this earth. And if you're watching this video, you're probably familiar on how to do that. And if you're not, just go and listen and read the teachings of our Messiah, Yeshua, Jesus. And he'll tell you exactly how to do it. We are to follow the Torah and its instructions and follow the example that Messiah left for us. So I just want to encourage you today that maybe you need to hit a reset button, reevaluate your own life, since we're talking about life. And maybe it's not the life of Sarah that we need to evaluate or think about. It's the life of Elmer. It's the life of insert your name. And think about, am I being a servant of the Most High? Am I being a faithful servant? Because remember, at the end days, the thing that we want to hear is, well done, thou good and faithful servant. A lot of times here on earth, people are concerned about their titles and who's a doctorate and who's got the PhD and who's got the master's degree and who went to this seminary or this has this theology down or wrote this many books. It doesn't matter. It's well done, thou good and faithful servant. And by doing that, we will be comforted. Hope this will be a blessing to you. Just give you something to think about and pray about. And may the Holy One bless you in a mighty and great way. Shalom. Bye.